This past week, for one of our middle school adventures, we went kayaking down the St. Croix River and went to a farm and visited animals to learn about God's creation and have fun in God's creation.
Today is Sustainability Sunday, and we're learning about God's creations, and by staying at home and not driving your car everywhere, you're saving the planet. So you win.
Tonight is one of our backyard barbecues hosted by the Lindsays and Smalls. Sign up online.
Our first music in the courtyard is tomorrow. Come and enjoy some music in the courtyard. See you there. Happy Sustainability Sunday!
Happy Sustainability Sunday! We are out on the river kayaking today enjoying God's creation. Thank you for coming to church and have a good Sunday.
Challenges, and then we had like advantages hidden all around, and like so we had like the tribes compete, one tribe to win, and then we did survivor challenges. So it was like point based. So we were like, we're not gonna do like bowl off, like sorry, you're yeah, and like now you're the woman, you can't participate the rest of the time. I will do whatever. So we just did like point. So you
That must be tough. Or twice. I'm guessing she's probably progressive this time too. You guys have seen?
But I like the initiative. Oh my gosh, did you write all of them? Oh my. Okay, can't.
I didn't write, but I did shuffle all of your
Just me and my sister.
Good morning, Meeting House Church. Good to see ya. Excited to be here with you this morning. My name is Andrew Joe. I'm one of the ministers here at Meeting House. And just a heads up, today we have a themed Sunday. Today is Sustainability Sunday. We are wanting to start the conversation around being good stewards, taking care of our planet, taking care of our neighborhood, and really giving back to the land that has given so much to us. So it's just starting the conversation. We invited some folks to bike and walk to church if they're able, which, based on how many people are still a little sweaty right now, thanks for doing that. Hopefully it was a nice ride. Also, you'll notice on your tables, there's a little disc, a little black disc. It is not a coaster. Please do not put your coffee mug on it. But in order to have less paper waste, we are using virtual bulletins today. So you have a couple options. I'm told, and this worked for some people, if you just unlock your phone, tap the disc, it'll bring up kind of the app that has the virtual bulletin. If that does not work for you, like it did not for my old phone, you could take out your QR code reader, use it that way. And then folks online, as always, we've got the virtual bulletin in the description for you. But yeah, as we continue the conversation around faith and sustainability, I'm wanting to read a passage here from Genesis 1:26. Then God said, "Let us make humans in our image according to our likeness. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." This past year with our students in the emerging generations, we talked about this idea of rada. And rada comes from that idea of dominion over. And I think sometimes when we get into the mindset of like, oh, dominion over, dominate, like hierarchy, I think either consciously or subconsciously, that definitely impacts how we show up, how we take care of our neighborhood and our planet. And what we talked with the students about is there is actually another way of thinking about rada, and it's co-dominion, working with, having responsibility. So again, we're just wanting to start the conversation this morning around sustainability, especially as people of faith, and being mindful and caring for where we live. So, welcome everyone again. Excited to be here with you. And other than being Sustainability Sunday, our theme for this morning is faith and resiliency. So, hopefully, naturally, you already see some connection there between sustainability and resilience. But our verse comes from James 1:19 through 27. And just so that you can stew on it for a little bit, before we dive deeper into it. It goes, "You must understand this, my beloved brothers and sisters. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. For human anger does not produce God's righteousness. Therefore rid yourself of all sordidness and rank growth of wickedness, and welcome with meekness the implanted word that has the power to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in a mirror. For they look at themselves and, on going away, immediately forget what they were like. But those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. If any think they are religious and do not bridle their tongues, but deceive their hearts, their religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this, to care for orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. Please pray with me. God, we're thankful for this morning. We're thankful for the chance to be here as a community and the opportunity to, possibly walk or bike and, just use our bodies to exercise and to breathe in the fresh air and to travel and to be near the places we need to go and have that accessibility and opportunity. I pray this morning as we lean into these ideas of sustainability and resiliency, that we can be challenged in really meaningful ways and assess and evaluate how we're showing up for ourselves, for other people, and also just this world we live in. All these things we think and pray in your Son's name. Amen. Please join me in worship.
If you would like to, and if you're able, you can go ahead and stand for this first song.
Ramblers in the wilderness, so we can't find what we need. We get a little restless from the search and get a little worn down in between. Like a bull chasing the matador is a man left to his own schemes. Everybody needs someone beside him, shining like a lighthouse from the sea. Brother, let me be your shelter. Never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're low. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving on. Be the one to light the way, bring you home. Face down in the desert now, there's a cage locked around my heart. Found a way to drop the keys where my failures were. Now my hands can't reach that far. I ain't made for rivalry. I could never take the world alone. I know that in my weakness I am strong, but it's in your love that brings me home. Sister, let me be your shelter. Never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're low. Sister, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving
You can go ahead and take a seat. Yep.
Okay, so kids, it's time to dismiss for God's garden. I think everyone's very focused on the playtime in the back. Is anyone gonna come up and join me?
Maybe if we start singing, they'll come.
They're like so focused. There's no Eliza here to run up with me. Here they come. Everyone's ready. You didn't hear. It's okay. I was stealthy. Oh. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful. All right. Hello. Good morning, everybody. Young ones, good morning. Glad you made it. We are going to sing our God's Garden song. So if you know the song, we're going to sing it through twice. Feel free to sing loudly each time. If you don't know the song yet, that's great. We'll sing it twice. So listen the first time and then join the second. Here we go. Come, oh come, come to the garden. Gather round, come without fear. Known by name here in God's garden. All are welcome. Amazing, louder this time. Come, oh come to the garden. Gather round, come without fear. Known by name here in God's garden. All are welcome. Yeah, give yourselves a round of applause.
Thank you. Okay, so kids, before we go, on the count of 3, we're going to say hi, church. So 1, 2, 3. Hi, church. That was loud. Okay, church, and then on the count of 3, say have fun, kids. So 1, 2, 3. Have fun, kids. Okay, and if you are in God's Garden Elementary, we're going to go out the back. And then if you are in the preschool, we'll go out the side door. But if parents, you want to go drop off the preschoolers, you can feel free to go out the side with us. You can go wherever you want. Do you want to go with your sister?
Is it time?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Leah. Trying to talk into a microphone. There we go. My name is Leah. I am part of the Emerging Generations team here at Meeting House Church. I specifically work with our amazing high school students. As Andrew kind of alluded to earlier this morning, today is Sustainability Sunday. It's something we've talked quite a bit about in our high school community because these amazing students are passionate about it, they care about it. So we've had a lot of conversations about what does that mean as a community, and how do we care for our creation, what does it look like to co-create alongside the environment, every living thing. It's been really awesome to hear their insight, their ideas, and connect their faith to it and what that means to them. So this, again, as Andrew said, is just the beginning of a conversation as a larger community of what this can look like. We do have a creation care team here at Meeting House Church that already is doing a lot of amazing work. Bob Dom right here is amazing at leading a lot of that, and these two have recently joined that team as well. And so we just want to continue conversation, continue ideas, continue the work of what does this mean for our community, and explore those. So I have today Elsa and Sarah here, who are part of our high school community, and we're just going to ask them a few questions to share some of their ideas and insights. So right off the bat, you guys, Why are you passionate about the environment? What causes you to care about it?
Okay. What causes me to care about the environment is that I know that if we don't do anything now, there will be irreversible damage. And I really care about future generations and having them enjoy everything that we have now and that we've had before is really important. So we got to take action now so that future generations and our generation can all enjoy the earth.
I think that it's just like really important to have a place where you feel safe and happy, healthy. And if we don't care for the earth now, we're just not going to be able to have that place later. And yeah, like Sarah said, future generations and even just us in our future, I think that if we don't do something now, there's going to be consequences later.
Yeah. So how would you two say that your faith or faith in general would compel you to care about caring for the creation or care about the environment?
So one of the things that the Bible talks a lot about is caring for each other. And when I think about the climate, I also think about climate justice. And if you don't know what that's about, it's the idea that minority groups often suffer the consequences of climate change more than other people. And so when we know that people need our help and are struggling more because of climate change, I think this ties in really well to the idea of love your neighbor and to take care of one another. And I think that's really important and tells us that we need to take care of our earth and each other.
So like the first thing in the Bible is God creating the earth, and we talk about like the idea of co-creation. It's like we're not like on this earth just to bend it to whatever we want, like dominate. As humans, we need to give back to the place that is giving life to us. And so I think that definitely ties into faith. God created this earth is what like we think, and yeah, I guess it's just we need to give back as much as we're given.
Totally. And you guys have mentioned before too that as the climate is more negatively affected from us as humans, right, as we dominate more, that also exasperates food insecurities and major earth disasters, right? So caring for the least of these is caring about the planet too, and some of that. So as you've talked about this, then what are some ideas or ways that you guys think our community can start to think or take action, or what are some, just general ideas you have for this community?
So the first step and one of the most important things is to talk about this issue, and some of our ideas include like having movie nights or discussions as a whole community, and we've also talked about having community composting. And as we talked about, this is also like a social issue because it affects people so directly. So coming together as a community to help each other is really important. Also, even though this is a really big issue, it's easy to shy away from it. But thinking of it as just doing every small thing you can really does make a difference. So it's important to remind yourself that even though there's a lot of work to be done, we can all make a difference.
I think that it's just like there are a bunch of small things that you can do that don't seem like they would make a huge difference, but like if everyone's doing them, it actually does. Like for example, like walking or biking to church, if everyone who's able can do that, that's already like making a huge difference in cutting down on fossil fuel emissions.
Totally. And you guys, they're just two of many in our high school community who have made a whole list of incredible ideas for this community. planting more, what we do with our grounds around the church, and also just being able to not use plastic on Wednesday night dinners, things like that. They've created an awesome list of ideas for our community to start engaging with. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just starting to have that conversation and raise awareness. And like Sarah said, it is such a big thing that feels really hard to like figure out what we do about it. And I think that's the coolest thing, is when we start to have a conversation, we start to do small things, that just increases the awareness of all people. And that really is what is going to make the impact, is having awareness and figuring out how we have commonality among this issue with each other. So thank you guys for being here today and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
If I needed you, would you come to me? Would you come to me for to ease my pain? If you needed me, I would come to you. I would swim the sea for to ease your pain. Well, the night's forlorn and the morning's born, and the morning's born with the lights of love. And you will miss sunrise if you close your eyes, and that would break my heart in two. If I needed you, would you come to me? Would you come to me for to ease my pain? If you needed me, I would come to you. I would swim the sea for to ease your pain. Baby's with me now, since I showed her how to lay her lily hand in mine. Who could ill agree? She's a sight to see, and a treasure for the poor to find. If I needed you, would you come to me? Would you come to me for to ease my pain? If you needed me, I would come to you. I would swim the sea for to ease your pain.
Yeah, it was.
I've mentioned this a few times. A big catalyst for me, even working at a church, going to seminary, is that I used to work at a Christian camp in Wisconsin in my early 20s for like 4 to 5 summers. And I just really enjoyed working with high school students. I felt like I was good at it. It was meaningful. And like every year going to business school and then going to camp, I was like, camp's a lot better than business school. And so I went to seminary. And the rest is history. Here I am. Our camp model we had at this particular camp was that for 3 weeks at a time, we would have 16 to 20 high school students and about 6 or 7 adult staff, and they'd live on site together. And it was like a mile down the road from any other responsible adults. And it was really great. We had hiking trips, canoe trips, small group time. And for folks in the room who remember Pyro, time at camp is really meaningful. It's really transformative. It's how you grow as a person, you grow in community. So you get it. We'll bring back Pyro someday, maybe. Probably not. But 3 weeks with that many high schoolers in one place, it definitely had a breakfast club vibe. Like they had different personalities, different reasons for being there. Like they were excited or they were made to be there. But either way, they spent those 3 weeks exploring who they were as people, exploring their faith, exploring the northern woods of Wisconsin. And without fail, after the 21 days, they'd be like a mini family. And something we did during those 3 weeks, pretty classic activity in not just Christian communities, but also a lot of other groups as well, is we invited campers to share their parts of their life story, their testimonies, if you will, at evening campfire. Opportunity to hear from each other, learn more about others, maybe hear how God might be moving in people's lives. And for the most part, it was good. It was pretty eclectic. If folks are familiar with Dude Perfect? My oldest son really loves them. My nieces and nephew love them too. They're just like 5 guys from Texas who like never grew up. And they like are known for just crazy trick shots and goofy videos. And they have one segment, it's called Stereotypes, where they just kind of poke fun and tease the different ways we do things. So an example would be like airplane passenger stereotypes, and you've got the person who's super comfy with like the neck pillow and like the weighted blanket, or like person who can't take a hint passenger, right? And they try to talk to you even though you don't know them, and you put your AirPods in, they're still telling the story. Shoes and socks off person, right? Well, I feel like the guys at Dude Perfect could have easily made like a testimony stereotypes video, where it's just like the person who's like super eager to share, they got to be the first one, and then it's like 1 minute long. They just had to be first. It was like a competition. Or like the really inspirational ones where like without fail, people are like grabbing the Kleenex and like everything transformed, not just for that person, for the rest of us, for even hearing it. The really long ones with unnecessary details. Like first grade was hard, I got bangs, and then here's how it impacted my faith. Right? It's like 30 minutes in. I didn't know how to cut those off. But for the most part, hearing life stories around the campfire was a good thing. But unfortunately, friends, the key phrase in that last sentence is for the most part. Not all of it was great. Okay. In fact, some of the things shared by the students was pretty shocking. And not shocking because of what they said. It was shocking because it turned out some of the campers were just straight up lying. Yeah. Shocking. All right. And I remember the first time that idea, that concept even hit us. There's a quiet camper telling his story, talking about how his families were missionaries in another country, and disaster hit, and they were on a plane that got hijacked, and like when they got there, they lived on this compound that was not safe to leave because people wanted to kill them because they were missionaries, and he saw his friend die. And naturally, the camp director and the rest of us were like, I hope this kid's okay. Like we reached out to his family, like, hey, is he all right? Is he getting support at home? This is a lot of trauma to process. And his family was like, what are you talking about? None of that is true. He lives in central Wisconsin. Right? I'll never forget the camper really early on in camp. Things were really hard. She was talking about being a teen mom, and her family excommunicated her. Right? Unacceptable. Like shame upon the family. And we spent those 3 weeks really trying to build her up and encourage her. And I remember the camp director, he was like convicted afterwards. He's like, I got to find this girl's parents. And like, what are you doing? Like, she's still your daughter. You got to be there for her regardless of what happened. And again, the story wasn't true. Those baby pictures we saw at camp were baby pictures of this camper's cousin's kid. And I'll never forget when we found out as camp counselors, like, it was like emotional nausea. It's just like everything we just like did the last 3 weeks and tried to support this camper, it was all meaningless. Or it was for reasons that we didn't think they were for. So right there, I do want to pause. I want to make it clear, I don't really want to speak poorly of these students. You know, in one sense, you know, we probably could have done a better job of setting up what that time looked like. What is the point of sharing your story? And hopefully it comes across that it's important to be truthful, because like you want to connect with folks. You want them to know the real you. And also, let's be honest, camp's kind of weird, right? Like, especially for 3 weeks at a time. Like, on the one hand, it's a great opportunity. You can like shed the baggage of like who you were at home, all the peer pressure, all the like societal standards you think there were, and be your truest version of yourself and like see how life-giving that is. On the flip side, it could be an opportunity to like just have a social experiment with people you'll never see again, and just see what happens, which is what they did. So for me, the more important question is why? Why would a high school student, when given the opportunity to talk about themselves, maybe share how God has been moving in their lives and talk about their faith, decide to come up with the most outlandish story possible? Why would they do that? And just so you know, it wasn't just those two examples. I can think of countless pretty wild stories that I heard around the campfire, which I guess as I say that out loud now makes me wonder how many of them were true, because we didn't follow up with everyone's family. I think the reason that a lot of students decide to come up with these Hollywood-esque stories is partly because of today's theme, faith and resiliency. Like many of the stories we hear in the Bible, you know, whether it was Saul being temporarily blinded on the road to Damascus and having this life-changing experience, or all the people Jesus healed, lepers and people who couldn't walk, the blind, or even just Lazarus being resurrected from the grave. I think either consciously or subconsciously we equate the impressiveness or significance of our faith with the impressiveness or significance of our story and the resiliency we've had to show to overcome hardship. The deeper the pain, the more inspirational the story, right? The wilder the details, the more amazing tale we have of redemption. Students didn't want to be boring. I still remember some of the campers being a little sheepish and being slightly embarrassed when their testimony was like, I grew up in a really great Christian family. I'm really close to all my family. Nothing bad has really happened to me. And my faith is still important to me. The end. And that's not a bad story, but they felt a little embarrassed sharing it. So maybe the paradigm shift we need to have is that while resiliency we've shown in the past is absolutely important, it's part of our story, it's what shaped us, maybe when we talk about resiliency as a community, we can focus on the resiliency we can show as a people of faith, both right now and in the future. And that might even mean we redefine or rethink about what resiliency in our faith looks like. So this book written in James, it's unique in that it's not like targeting or addressing a specific early church community. It's basically James outlining what he's learned about being a Jesus follower. And he really leans into works and like what you do, which is why Martin Luther called it an epistle of straw. He really hated it. But James is essentially asking questions like, what does it mean to be a follower of Jesus? And who are you, knowing what you know about who God is? Like, how do you show up in the world knowing all those things? So he's trying to get in people's business, and he's challenging the way that people live their lives. And he offers up a lot of practical nuggets. And one I really like is when he differentiates hearers who forget and doers who act. Hearers who forget and doers who act. And he emphasizes the importance of processing and internalizing what you hear and then acting accordingly. right? Not just like hearing something and then just going about your day like nothing's changed, but being transformed. It's the classic faith without works is dead. And he uses this imagery of someone looking in the mirror and then walking away and forgetting what they look like. And I really like that comparison. So mirrors are a big deal, right? If you think about it, looking in the mirror is like the only time you can actively engage and analyze our physical selves. I remember being like little Andrew and like when I saw the reflection and like being drawn to like, oh, this is what everyone else sees when they see me. And like practicing like my goofy faces in the mirror and like trying to perfect them. I also remember in elementary school, the first time a classmate of mine ran up to me on the playground and did like the slanty-eyed face and like laughed. And what I remember most is like being confused. I was like, all right, it sounds like they were making fun of me. What's the joke? And like going home that night and using the mirror to like analyze my eyes and look at my face. And then picturing all the eyes of my classmates, and then it dawned on me. And I was like, oh, my eyes are way different than everyone else's eyes. And then from that moment on, the mirror introduced being self-conscious. I remember being a teenager and hating zits. I would just pop every one of them, even though you're not supposed to. And then I'd really hate like the red, irritated aftermath. And so from then on, it's just like, I just assumed what I saw in the mirror and all the imperfections and all the things I didn't like, that's what everyone else saw when they saw me. They saw the slanted eyes, they saw the pop zits. And it wasn't just physical attributes, it became value-based things, right? Oh, if I'm Asian or if I'm different or if I have zits, I must not be liked, I must not matter. So to me, the power in James's metaphor with the mirror is, what story are we telling ourselves? And from that story, how are we living? So do we see ourselves as God sees us, as a beloved child of God, full of worth and creativity and wonder? And then do we live from that place, from that wonderful foundation? Or do we forget that truth and we start looking for meaning and validation and identity from any and everywhere else? And we might let others dictate who or what we see in the mirror. I know that's what I did. And then we live from that place. We live from that awful foundation. But friends, the goal here in James is not just behavioral modification. It's about transformation that betters the world. James is talking about us looking into the perfect law, the law of liberty or of being free. And he says if we persevere, or if we are resilient, we will be hopefully embodying pure religion, which James says is caring for orphans and widows in their distress and not being stained by the world. So if you want the Andrew interpretation of what he's saying, our identity should be in God. We shouldn't get caught up in the world's structures of power and priorities and ways of valuing people. And as we learn what it means to lean into that and be free people redeemed by God, we should seek the freedom of others and help the most vulnerable people in their moments of greatest need. I'm still thinking about what Sarah said about climate justice and how it's just not just about the planet, but it impacts those around us. The folks in greatest need impacted the most by it. Friends, to me, this is the long, never-ending process of faith and resiliency. It's not just a season of our lives that was hard or tragic. And again, those are important seasons. I know I have my own. But it's how do we persist and commit to doing all these things well? Knowing our identity, trying to live into that identity, wanting that for others and fighting for it, all while trying to help those with the most need. I mean, my head hurts just describing it. Like, how can anyone be expected to do all those things really well? And if I'm going to be really transparent, this is where I really struggle being either a Christ follower, being a person of faith, or even being here at church. Because to try to do all these things well, it just seems like there's so many tensions to balance. Right? Like on the one hand, the Bible is really clear on how self-sacrificial we should be in relation to helping the marginalized. Yet sometimes it feels like we only sort of do it. For some of us, we get really overwhelmed with how many injustices there are in the world. With others, like the lane is just being numb, not really thinking about it. And for others, we focus on our spheres of influence and we help in manageable ways, which is great. That's a good thing. But at the same time, it feels like progress is slow. It feels like we're not super close to fully embodying this radical care for the needy that James and much of the Bible and Jesus all talk about. There's also tension I feel in how we as people of faith disagree about so much. We get caught up in our arguments. Some people leave. We get caught up in the politics. And then really people who might not see eye to eye with me. In church, we're also trying to do all these things together, so we will never move as quickly or as slowly as people think we ought to move. How do we balance good intentions with what's actually happening? How do we balance trying to be patient and helping others develop while also taking care of ourselves and making sure we don't burn out? Figuring out how to do these things well and persisting despite all these tensions is a type of resiliency and faith that resonates with me. And tension doesn't have to be a bad thing. I had a conversation with my brother-in-law, Tom, yesterday, and he reminded me with guitar strings, you actually need that tension to play beautiful music, to play chords. Al, can you vouch for that? Is there music to play chords? Al, can you vouch for that? Is there tension when you play? Okay, thank you. So my point is I believe we could use the most resiliency in our faith, in our ability to stand firm in the difficulties of conflict and change, both now and in the future. Can we be resilient in our commitment to wanting to transform ourselves for the better so that we can help transform the world for the better and not just view people through the lens of society, but view them through the lens of God? Can we lift up each other's humanities? Can we tangibly help people in life-changing ways with no strings attached? And friends, I have a lot more questions than answers this morning. So hopefully you didn't come this morning looking for a lot of answers. But I do feel strongly that how we answer these questions determine our ability to actually be the church. And if we can do these things well, if we can get there together as a faith community, that is the type of story I think we can all be excited to share. Please pray with me. God, this morning as we're thinking about resiliency in our faith and as we think about sustainability, I think as we live in the tension, as we try to figure out a path forward, perhaps one of the things to keep in mind is that we are people. We are people. Not everything is in our control. You are God. And in a sense, having hope and having faith is not having all the answers. Not being able to actively determine what happens. And sometimes that's a scary thing. Sometimes that's something that is frustrating. And sometimes it can be a comforting thing. So God, my prayer this morning for all of us is that we're not just hearers who forget, but we're doers who act. And even when we feel hopeless and even when we feel overwhelmed, we find those steps. We find those steps to bring heaven to earth. We find those steps to bring joy and love to people. We find those steps to better ourselves so we can be more the people you made us to be. And I pray we could do this together well. All these things we pray in your Son's name. Amen.
Well, if I needed you, would you come to me? Would you come to me to ease my pain? If you needed me, I would come to you. I would swim the seas to ease your pain. I was talking with one of our members earlier this week. He said, Mark, we've had some challenges in our family recently, And one of the things that our community does really well, for us at least, is to respond to those needs and to remind us that they're praying for us, that they care about us, that they will do whatever they can do to ease our pain and to help us through this challenging time. Now, James is a very practical book. The problem is that he gets so personal. I read through all of these things, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. And I think, oh, wait, I'm slow to listen, quick to speak, quick to get angry. I'm often doing the opposite of what James says we ought to do. But feeling guilty isn't a substitute for change. We actually have the capacity with our faith, with God's Spirit, with God's Word, and with one another. We have the capacity to change our lives. It doesn't matter how old or young we are. We have the capacity to grow and to learn and do things differently. So as we conclude today, I'd like to focus on something really positive. I'd like you to think of a time that you reached out to someone who had a need and you did what you could. And think about how that felt and then talk about it at the table. And then think about a time when you had a particular need and someone addressed that need. They showed that they cared. And think about and talk about what that was like. When my mother was dying a number of years ago, a friend of mine, a businessman in our church at that time, said, Mark, you need to go visit your mom. I said, well, I would. I'd like to, but I just don't have the money for an expensive ticket. Short range, got to be there in a few days. And he said, that's not a problem. I said, well, actually it is. He said, no, I'm going to buy your ticket, which he did. Cost, like today, it's cost a lot more than it typically would. But he made it possible for me to go and make that trip. And so I think he comes to mind when I think of someone who saw a need in my life, addressed that need because he was able and he was generous enough to do that, and so on. So talk about those things in your experience where you've either given or received what you needed. Take a few minutes, just do that together.
I believe that every heart is kind. Some are just a little underused. Hatred is a symptom of times, lost in these uneducated blues. I just wanna love you while I can. All these other thoughts have me confused. I don't need to try and understand. Maybe I'll get up, turn off the news. Turn off the news and build a garden. Just my neighborhood and me. We might feel a bit less hardened. We might feel a bit more free. Turn off the news and raise your kids. Give them something to believe in. Teach them how to be good people. Give them hope that they can see. Hope that they can see. Turn off the news and build a garden with me. Trust builds trust. All that negativity's a bust. Trust builds trust. Don't you wanna be happy? Turn off the news and build a garden. Just my neighborhood and me. We might feel a bit less hardened. We might feel a bit more free. Turn off the news and raise your kids. Give them something to believe in. Teach them how to be good people. Give them hope that they can see. Hope that they can see. Turn off the news and build a garden with me. Turn off the news and build a garden with me.
It's on? It's on. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, band, for leading us in worship and reflection this morning. Take what you've heard, put it into action in whatever ways you can. Just a few announcements for you. One, we have a luncheon right after this service in the North Commons to celebrate Alice Loddings and her ministry with us over the past number of years. Alice has been Jeff's assistant, but also part of our pastoral care team, and does a wonderful job in caring for us and keeping us organized. So thank you to Alice, and help celebrate her at the luncheon. Music in the courtyard tomorrow night, 6 o'clock. There'll be supper and music, and good time just to relax and be with friends. So come join us tomorrow at 6. Then we have conciliatory conversations. You know, the last couple of years have been challenging for our community. We've made decisions, we've changed things up, we've done things differently, and some really love that. Others really don't. And so we still have some more conversations and listening to do with one another. The Pilgrim Center folks and our church leadership will be meeting with us. Check your e-news this week, and it has those dates listed for you to come. Just spend an hour, hour and a half with us, listen to one another, and take it a step forward in healing from the challenges and the changes that we've experienced together. And then Theology on Tap this Thursday night at 6 o'clock, Wooden Hill Brewing Company. They have all kinds of beer, but they also have all kinds of root beer and non-alcoholic drinks. Just come, chill, be casual, and talk about theology, talk about faith with one another. You'll enjoy it. So come and join us. Wooden Hill Brewing, 6 o'clock Thursday night. So thank you. Have a great day. Have a great week. Question? Who rode your bike today? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Wonderful. And all of you people are riding home now. That's good. Have a great day. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.